Welcome to Questrom Insights Live and the Susilo Institute for Ethics in the Global Economy webinar series. I'm Dave Epstein, Executive Director of the Susilo Institute, a part of Boston University Questrom School of Business, which examines issues and explores solutions to global ethical challenges in business. So I was reading a fascinating book called The Right Side of History by Ben Shapiro, where Jeff Goodby explained his concern with the changing face of advertising. With a push toward individualized marketing, using data mined about each of us, advertising is as much a data science discipline as it is a creative art to move larger swaths of the population. And that was written well before ChatGPT, DALL-E 2, and other AI platforms existed that mimic creativity. So this sparked my interest into digging deeper. So let me introduce Jeff Goodby, who probably needs no introduction. Jeff is a Harvard grad who wrote for the Harvard Lampoon and has illustrations in Time, Mother Jones, and Harvard Magazine. He met Hal Riney, his mentor, and Rich Silverstein at Ogilvy and Mather, where Jeff learned his reverence for surprise, humor, craft, and restraint. Jeff and Rich founded Goodby, Silverstein and Partners in 1983 with a founding client that they renamed Electronic Arts. Since then, the two have won just about every advertising award imaginable. Jeff's work has been displayed in the Museum of Modern Art in New York City in 2006, and he was inducted into the Advertising Hall of Fame. In 2019, he and Rich received the Cannes Lion of St. Mark Award for Lifetime Achievement. Jeff lives in Oakland, California with his family, and we heard maybe more than one dog, sometimes a cat, 3 horses, and some other things that he probably doesn't know about. So joining Jeff, I'm pleased to introduce Kathy Kiley and Professor D.K. Lee. After a 25-year marketing and advertising career, Kathy serves as president of the Ad Club. With over 12,000 members, it's one of the largest trade organizations of its kind. Under Kathy's direction since 2005, Ad Club significantly grew memberships and sponsorship, built premier professional development, scholarship, and mentoring programs, and holds yearly events, including the Hatch Awards, Rossoff Awards, the Edge Conference, and Legends Night. Kathy graduated from Massachusetts College of Art and Design and has served on its board of trustees. She's also a board member for Big Sister Association of Greater Boston and serves on the board of overseers for Boston Innovation. DK is a professor of information systems here at Questrom. He studies responsible application, development, and impact of AI and generative AI in business, particularly in innovation, social media, advertising, and creativity. DK is widely published in leading journals and conferences and has racked up awards, including ISS Gordon B. Davis Young Scholar, the Marketing Science Institute Young Scholar, Best Paper and Teaching Awards, and Management Science Distinguished Service Award. His work of supporters include Adobe, Google, and McKinsey. DK holds a computer science degree from Columbia, a master's from Yale, and a PhD from Wharton. Not too shabby. Before academia, DK worked at BlackRock, Thomson Reuters, and 4 different tech startups. So please use the Q&A tab to ask questions. I'll save time at the end for as many as we can get to. Please feel free to use the chat during the discussion otherwise. So let's get started. So Jeff, could you start us out with a historical perspective, maybe of advertising over your career, your storied career? We can especially interested in creative content of ads and how it's been done and how it's evolved over the years, and maybe how automation evolved with it.
So that's not too much to do, Dave.
No.
Jeff, I was going to say, Jeff, that's so unfair.
In a minute or less, of course.
Well, I've always thought of advertising as like the biggest exploration of who we are in the world. And it's corporate funded, which is amazing. It searches out like what we love and what we hate and what we're afraid of, and and just all kinds of things about us. And that's been true for a long time, and it'll stay true going into the future, I think. Kathy and I have worked in a time when humans were making all the advertising, and then humans plus AI, which is kind of what we're in right now, which is a really interesting time. And maybe we're just a chapter. Maybe humans are just a chapter to something where the AI makes everything. Who knows? Maybe we'll diminish to zero. I hope not. I started doing this in 1978. And commercials were fun. They were kind of a shared experience. Like when you went to the water cooler, somebody would know what you had done. They'd talk about it, and that's very rare now. Very rare. Like that's probably the biggest change since that era. But you shared things, and you shared magazine ads, you shared outdoor ads. Everybody saw the same advertising. Not true anymore. That kind of advertising was intrusive in our lives. And what we did was, I think we figured out ways to get around the intrusion in many ways. We got controllers and things that record TV shows and so on. And in time, like, we did away with a lot of the intrusions of advertising. And the only advertising that we really watched was during live events, like the Oscars or the Super Bowl. That was when we watched advertising. We don't really take it in, involuntarily. We take it involuntarily now. If we want to see it, we see it. We don't, and the advertising people, we don't put up with that. We like find ways around it. So, the internet was a way around that. Individual targeting, the thing that we call mass intimacy at my office, which is to talk to lots of people at once, but in a way that makes it feel like it's just about you. How did they know this about me? And that comes about because of data mining, because of the amount of data that's scraped from our lives, something I'm not happy about. Dave's read my essay about that. I'm not happy about that. It obviously been misused in social media, and one of the things I don't like about the industry. So, I think the thing about AI is, right now, you can create content with it, and we kind of control that content in many ways, and we're going to talk about this. AI can target the content and make it even better. The thing that's dangerous about it is, of course, that it emulates sounds and images and so on. And in advertising, that's what's going to be what we talk about today, I bet. And that won't be okay, because it will be somewhat out of our control. So that's my history of advertising for the last 40 odd years. There are still, we do a campaign that you probably will know in Boston for Sam Adams beer with this cousin from Boston guy that, there are still things like that when you get in a cab, you can talk to a person about it and they've seen it, but it's more and more rare. It's more and more rare.
It's a good thing you're from Rhode Island, Jeff, that you got away with doing your cousin from Boston.
You know what? You guys will appreciate this. When we originated that, I said to the people working on it that Massachusetts, maybe New England in general, is the only place in America that takes it as a compliment that they're being like made fun of.
That they're being mocked. It's so
Yeah.
true. It's so true. And mocked by, people who are desperately trying to get the accent right. So we get a kick out of that.
So Kathy, maybe you can introduce a little bit into what you see as creativity in ads over the years, since you've seen many.
God, I don't, Jeff, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but and DK, same to you, but I've been in advertising. So I started in 78. I graduated Mass College of Art in 1978. So Jeff, you and I are sort of in the same timeline. And I've been told 100 times that it was the end of advertising, that we were going to be replaced and something was taking over. And it just never happened. I feel like technology has always been, a friend. Since Leonardo da Vinci mixed art and science together, I've always felt like it's been like a simpatico relationship. I get a little, as I read about what artificial intelligence can do, I get a little nervous about it, but I'm, and we talked about this a little bit prior to this, but I feel like there's a it's like having a job insurance if you're a really good creative person. And Jeff, you certainly have this job insurance. It's like there's a part of your brain that I don't think artificial intelligence will ever duplicate. That is what puts you in touch with emotion and being able to read a person's feelings and think of another way of saying it. I don't think that can ever be duplicated by artificial intelligence. And I think the artificial intelligence that we're looking at now, and could never come up with gut milk. That campaign would never happen. That's like a piece of your brain that's just so rare and so unique. And so I embrace technology all the time. I'm not saying I'm brilliant at it, but I'm never afraid of it.
Well, that's a good segue into, let's hear from DK a little bit.
DK being of a very different generation.
Yeah, I was going to say, I also graduated with master's in '78, so I think we're all contemporaries, and I think DK is just our
good thing DK's here. Yeah.
But it's good to have somebody who actually has grown up with real technology like this. So DK, so a lot of us have been impressed by the recent capabilities that we've seen with ChatGPT. Of course, that's all over the news now, and people are using it, and DALL-E 2 and Stable Diffusion and Bard now with Microsoft. But you've been studying this for many years, and generative AI, in fact, as well. So for you, this is no big surprise. But maybe you can kind of give us a feeling about how creativity is embedded in these programs, or how they look, and is it the intent to be a partner to humans, or are they going to replace humans?
Yeah, that's
yes or no
question. So yes or no? Well, yeah, it's not a yes or no question. So currently, I think it's for augmentation. Of course, it does a lot of it can be used not only for brainstorming, but combinational creativity is quite accessible with these models, right? So a lot of times, I guess it's currently being used to, artists would prompt things and then get some outputs, and then fix on top of that for ChatGPT 2, right? So what these models are good at is it is able to soak in what's on internet, right? So all of these models do learn from internet and what has been stored in data, but that's the current limitation. So as Kathy mentioned, right, the emotion is hard to encode right now. I mean, for now. So I'm not going to make any. Yeah, I mean, I won't be making any predictions, right, about how the technology will evolve. I don't think anyone knows. I'm sure people are working on a bunch of different things. For now, computers do not have access to that. So all they have is some sort of aggregate reactions that we make, but it doesn't have the high resolution emotion that individuals feel because it's not digitized. Again, when will that happen? Who knows? But without that as data to train these model, I think we're what Kathy has been saying, what Kathy has said is true, right? It's not possible right now.
But do you think that piece of the human brain that, and I'm really curious about this, because this is the only part of this that frightens me. Do you think that part of the human brain that senses an emotion and can write a music lyric, or can tap into what I'm feeling, do you think that can be duplicated into artificial intelligence?
I mean, it can certainly be trained to mimic it. Even ChatGPT, even though it has a semblance of understanding, it's just getting some it has soaked up statistical regularities of internet language, and also the photos, and it's mimicking it. So it's not. I'm not sure if we can truly say it's understanding. This argument goes
Right.
back to like 60s. I think the Chinese room argument, the original, when the AI first started.
Right.
But what I think that it currently lacks is it lacks not only the context the individuals feel and see, all the things that cannot be digitized is totally missing, right? Like muscle memory, some senses, not audio and video, but like taste it cannot be captured. Tactile, muscle memory,
Yeah.
anything
But
that cannot be digitized. Yeah.
You know what it is good at, though, is juxtaposing things, I think, and it can learn a lot from that. I was thinking about, like Eisenstein's film cutting, when he first invented that idea of, he took that woman, you take a woman that's crying and you cut it together with a gravestone, and you go, oh, she's crying about the gravestone, and suddenly you get an emotion. I think that an AI can learn how to do that, can learn how to juxtapose things and go, oh yeah, when this DK guy did that little thing where he juxtaposed those two images, everybody cried. I'm going to remember that and use it. I think that's going to happen. It's going to start to understand how to make emotions out of things like that, which is totally predictable, I think.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point about also it learning, as okay, it didn't come up with got milk, but now that it has that in its lexicon, it may choose something different that we'd be surprised that it combined one with another, just because it now does it. And as we do it more, it learns every time we come up with something that's innovative, and it gets better, right? I think that's what it is. One thing that you said before, Jeff, that I want to come back to is you mentioned kind of the water cooler idea of people sharing information. Will AI replace that? In other words, will it become the mentor, or will it become the idea generator that then causes the human to come up with something new? Can we get because people aren't talking to each other, but you always have the AI to talk to you, does it become our partners?
It certainly will spur us to be better. I think that there's something about the AI that, it'll spur us to try to be better, to do things that the AI can't do. I think, I think of that Salvador Dali painting of the melting clocks, and I go, AI is not going to come up with a melting clock painting unless a human goes, make a painting with melting clocks. It's not going to do that. It's going to take a long time before the AI does something like that, but it'll do things like that pretty randomly. We did a new business pitch using I think it was DALL-E 2, and in a really early version of it, and it came up with headlines that you would never come up with. It was for a alcohol beverage thing, and it came up with a headline that said, "It's what they drink on the sun." Like, no human would write, "It's what they drink on the sun." And but you have to go through like thousands of headlines to find that headline. It's a very inexact tool right now. It'll get much more so, like DK saying, it'll refine itself. It'll start understanding those juxtapositions, and that we find, we are the masters of this, that we're still, at least for now, that we find interesting. It'll understand those juxtapositions that we find funny and moving,
So a question came up from Neuro. He asks, do you believe the emergence of smart devices has led to the shorter attention span for people, and therefore specific targeting of ads with AI? And I combining that question with short attention spans and maybe more quick advertising, might it be that AI can start doing some quick short things and leaving the harder things to humans, or is that?
It's already doing that. It's already doing that. people are generating ads already with AI for situations like that. The thing that an AI can't do right now is sort of tell an appropriate story around the product and its reason to be and so on. It can't do that yet. And stories are incredibly motivating to us as humans, But like you're saying, the short attention span thing is real. You can't tell a very complex story in a short attention span, and yet, a short burst is a useful advertising tool. So the AI is going to do that job for sure. It already is in many cases.
Yes, in fact, in Netflix, every one of us get each different thumbnail and a short preview of the video. They personalize that on the fly for individuals. They have been doing that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm depressed. Yeah, and Jeff, do you think, and DK, same question for you, that creative people could be replaced, like let's say someone who comes up with the script for a movie, or more importantly, a novel, or do you think ultimately they could be replaced by artificial intelligence and have it be meaningful?
It depends on what meaningful means. I think artificial intelligence can do.
Have it resonate, because so you don't feel like you're reading something that was produced by somebody without a soul,
Hey, this is the biggest question that I get is, will creative people be replaced at some point? We were talking about that. I think they won't be, but they'll learn to use this as a tool. So the guy that's writing a script will come to a certain point. Oops, sorry. A person that's writing a script will come to a certain point and they'll go, wow, I need an ending on this thing. How am I going to end this thing? And you can ask the AI to help you with an ending. I think that will start happening,
Yeah. Well, what do you think, DK?
Yeah, so going back to what we've been saying, what are these AI tools capable of? It's easy to confuse, I think, human intelligence with these artificial intelligence, right? So I'd like to say artificial intelligence doesn't care if the content is quantum mechanics or children's story. If it has enough data, it can mimic the statistical regularities and have a good semblance of knowledge. So going back to this feelings, I think, I guess Jeff mentioned also that it can probably try to mimic that if we digitize that enough, right? So in terms of creativity, so I guess the Bowden has three requirement for artifact to be creative, novel, surprising, and valuable. So algorithmically, it is totally actually easy to come up with novel and surprising algorithmically. Now, it depends, like the last part of the creativity, the value, which we give. I mean, we always have to give it a value, right? So we are the arbiter of whether in this context, this advertising is heartwarming or whatever. So we are the arbiter of the value. So in that sense, we'll have to provide it a lot of data in a lot of different forms before it can try to mimic it. But there are ways to try to teach the algorithm to mimic it adversarially, showing an example, soak that in. So when will that happen? I don't know. But for now, I think it's a very good idea. You can bounce ideas off of it. You can also tell algorithms to explore what it's good at. It's the scalability, right? So it can incorporate all kinds of different knowledge from all kinds of different fields, and then juxtapose seemingly unrelated things. And humans, like the masters of creatives, like Jeff and Kathy yourself, will be then the arbiter. So yeah, that looks good. This looks good. That looks terrible. Yeah.
I think taste is a big thing. You're right. I mean that'll be our role in a way to keep, because the AI will have a way of like making good be okay. instead of making great. You know, we'll start to think good is okay. And it's our role to not let that happen. It's our role to want it to be better, to make it funnier, to make it more moving, to make it more beautiful.
Yeah.
That's what our role is going to be, I think. Taste is going to be a big thing, and ethics are going to be a big thing. I think, you know, I know that this class is about ethics to some degree. I think that's going to be a big question going forward. You know, the ethical use of this stuff. Big question.
Yeah, part of that, in the ethical part. I mean, so you mentioned, you know, maybe nobody would have come up with a melting clock but now it can come up with a melting cat or a melting house or a melting whatever, right? It can
Once you
easily,
get it melting, it'll do that.
right. But and what if instead of, you know, got milk, you know, got a bike or something like that comes up? Then how do you
The humans have already done that.
well, what happens? Yeah, humans do it, but how do you protect your own intellectual property, if you will? I mean, then if it's just copying you, because it is copying, right? I mean, it's mimicking, so it's copying. So how do people feel about, you know, you're mimicking me? I could probably say, write me a commercial that is like Jeff Goodby would write it. And it might come up with one, right? And then do you own that, or do they own that, or how do you feel?
Well, the people at my place did exactly that. They fed everything that I'd written into an AI and had it learn it, and then asked it to write things. And it was uncannily good and funny at it. But you know, you can't ask it to do everything. It won't. It'll give itself away. You know, it'll give itself away as not being me. Or if you kind of push it hard enough. And that's what I mean about having high standards. I think our standards, we have to be careful not to relax our standards on this stuff, because once our standards go down, we'll start accepting the stuff that this thing makes and think it's just fine. And we are lazy. We'll do that.
Well, Jeff, I was going to say half of the pharmaceutical advertising on the planet, almost 100% of it could be written by artificial intelligence. I mean, it's just it's so
insulting.
It's insulting.
So,
it is.
So Fred Geyer's on the line too, and he asks, hi Fred. So he asked, it could definitely, he first says it could definitely do Hal Riney ads. So that's an interesting thing.
That's
he
so
also,
true.
he also asked, how do we factor in the fact that digital media last year for the first time has overtaken traditional advertising spending on an annual basis in the US, even without AI? So how does that factor into this in some way?
It might be positive. It means that there aren't so many juniors writing banner ads in the night.
I'm surprised last year was the first year it overtook it. I'm very surprised to hear that.
Yeah, I mean,
prevalent. I mean, it's like.
Once again, I think that that's a misleading statistic, because you know, who knows what it's replacing and what the level of quality is. I'm hoping that there's still a level of quality at the top of this stuff that it can't do, and so that maybe that shouldn't scare us. Maybe what it's doing is doing things that really most of us don't want to do. You know.
Yeah.
So, Kate asks, do you think the quality of advertisements are going to go down because companies will push AI generated ads out quickly rather than taking the time? So are we going to be dumbing down the ads in general? And then does that raise the quality of the people generated ads? I mean, that's the second half of that.
It's a really, really good question. You know, in many ways, it is the question. Again, it's about the standards of taste that DK was talking about. You know, if we continue to maintain some kind of higher standard of taste, then we'll have a role. If we don't, then that stuff will it'll just take over, because, you know, many times we like the cheapest, fastest, you know, not necessarily best solution. We accept it. You know.
Yeah, go ahead, Kath.
No, I was just gonna say, people love to love advertising. Like, you can't go anywhere and you say, I'm an advertiser, and they say, oh, my favorite ad is, and they can quote every ad from the Super Bowl, and I would like to, I'm a complete optimist in this, because I really, truly believe, and this is probably me just wanting to believe this, but that there's a part of a brain, part of the brain of a creative person that thinks of things that can't be artificially generated. It's just a way of looking at life. I'm a big optimist that people are, there's a human brain and human beings and insights, and I see it in medicine, I see it in automotive design, I see it in, that can't just be taken away. And I really believe that about advertising. I really do. And Jeff, being that I'm 66 years old, I can't remember some of the world's greatest campaigns, but there were ads that really did help change the world. When you look back at them, I'll use a local brand, what Arnold did with Volkswagen.
Right.
That was a dead brand. And they gleaned an insight, and they created that campaign, and I think the progressive ads are hysterical. TV Dad, I think that's a new campaign right now out. It's funny. I don't know that can be generated, so
I think it depends on, machine learning and
yeah,
learning the really the algorithms of humor and how they're used and what you can replace things with to make things funny and so on. And I mean, it's not impossible. I think the thing about Volkswagen being dead in the water is a really good example of where the AI would probably be stumped. Like when a brand is totally dead and has no relevance anymore.
Yeah.
What information could the AI access to bring it forward? I think humans would really be more useful in that situation somehow.
What do you think, DK?
Jeff, my heart is breaking that you don't think that creativity cannot be mimicked or copied. I'm like, oh, come on.
DK, what do you think?
Yeah,
DK?
Oh, yeah. So I guess in the beginning, we'll see as it unfolds, but we'll have some sort of a bimodality separating equilibrium going on where lots of mundane ads or not so good ads might be replaced by the AI. And folks like, masters like Jeff and Kathy, who knows all, it has the sense of this.
Smart man.
and also, knows the tools and, have a team, thinking on how to best use this would then have, I feel like would have like a longer tail, right? Like on the masters actually, might have a better time. Then also the ones that are boring and maybe not so important might be replaced by the AI. I also want to point out that generative AI capability is in massively scaling all kinds of multimodal data together, compile it, and present it in a human understandable way called multimodal learning. For example, let's say you want to advertise a company. It can actually soak up previous logos, mission statement, 10K reporting, what people talk about on Twitter, what people tag on Instagram, and then combine and then and find a representation that incorporates all of this. And then not even that, just like, you can do many combinational creativity, such as like, give me a mission statement of, I don't know, a Mercedes-Benz, but if I don't know what other company, like if a Google were to come up with the Mercedes-Benz mission statement, what would it be? Then algorithms can try to come up with some combination there. So
Yeah.
then Jeff and Kathy would take algorithms will generate lots of these, and then Jeff and Kathy might put a master final touch to make it ridiculously good, right? So I think there might be some sort of a longer tail happening.
Well, and that's what I mean about the taste, because you still have to have the taste to pick the thing out and go, that's the one that's the best, and I can improve upon it by making it red, or some but the AI can definitely help you get to that spot that DK is talking about, where you have a whole bunch of things in front of you. At the same time, having a menu of things, as we know, is a limitation too, because there'll be things that aren't on that menu. And it's our job to think of those things. And again, it's human nature to be lazy and not push yourself that extra mile beyond the things that are on the menu. We got to remember to do that.
Yeah.
So we have an anonymous person asking, with the addition of AI involvement in creative processes with the perception of people in advertising, will the perception of people in advertising industry be devalued somewhat? And this kind of goes along with that question of, are we going to, are in the discussion we were just having, are we taking fewer people who have a lot more experience and maybe are top of game, but are we going to start losing the people who are, who are just, they're good, but they're not any better than, or the clients will just say, I can do this good enough. As you had said, Jeff, is there a good enough that takes care of 50% of the business, and now we only have 50%, and is that going to either reduce wages for everybody in advertising, or does it just reduce the number of positions that are in advertising?
I don't think, I'm sort of not like Kathy on this. I don't think that people think that highly of advertising until they get specific. And you go, well, what about the progressive campaign? They go, oh yeah, I like that actually. I think generally they don't like advertising. Like I've said to people, in advertising, if you go to a party and you tell people you write books, the person that you talk to doesn't immediately think of the crappiest book they've ever read and say, did you write that? But that's what happens in advertising. They go like, wait a minute, you don't do that. You don't do that one with the. So, like most of the time, I'm like, no.
Completely disagree with that. I completely disagree with that.
Think about this.
Everyone loves to feel like they're an expert in advertising.
They do. But I was just thinking about what DK was saying.
So
I was thinking about what DK was saying and going, okay, if you're an astrophysicist and you train the AI on, galaxies far away, looking for discrepancies in the light and so on, and you just let it run, and it runs and runs and runs and discovers something for you, you don't get this. You don't immediately think less of that astrophysicist for doing that. Why should people think less of us for using the AI? I don't get it.
No, and I agree with. No, and I, having been in advertising for a long time, every 10 years, I'm told we're all going to disappear and be, considered irrelevant. It happens constantly with every new invention. And I'm a big believer in, you have to embrace change because it's coming. And so take it or leave it. You have to embrace change. And I just truly, my only true gut belief is that there's a part of a human brain, and I'm going to die believing this. There's a part of a human brain that's creative, that is rare and unique and can't be duplicated. And you can, algorithm it to death. But if I thought that wasn't true, it would depress me to the nth degree. Like I truly believe that. And I believe that about you, Jeff, and the work you've done and the things you think about. And people I've known that have been incredible advertising people and then went on to be amazing painters and amazing. There's something I would love to believe that humanity can harness technology, but I would hate to believe that technology will replace humanity. That's
Well, it
me.
won't as long as we keep our taste levels high, like DK was saying, I think. As long as we're pushing ourselves to do better than what
Yeah.
we're seeing. Because that's what creativity really is. It's looking at the solution that people are doing right now and going, but they're not thinking about it this way. They should do this. And, you know, we can
Yes.
still do that.
And maybe that's the new
Okay.
creativity. Maybe technology is the new creativity.
So, so Kevin asked something right on this point. He said, "Do you think AI deserves credit for playing a role in creative idea?
Yeah.
And will there be some value put on 100% human created idea versus an AI assisted idea, or will everybody use AI? Period. It just is going to be."
It's a great
Is
question.
there any? Do you, both of you that are in the advertising area, do you think that one process is less valuable than the other?
Everybody's going to use AI. It's all a question of how you use it. Everybody's
Yeah.
going to use it.
Yep.
It's going to be there. It's like, why, and why
Yeah.
wouldn't you? It's already there.
Yeah, you have to embrace it.
Yeah.
And figure out how you're going to use it.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, Jeff. But I guess all I was saying was it's not going to replace
It's
you.
like, it's like Jimmy Breslin said, it's like stopping water with your feet. It's going to happen, you know, you can't stop it.
That's good. Okay, so now since we're in the ethics side of things, Shuba asks us, will AI reduce biases? This is going to be good for DK to start. Will it reduce biases in ads that arise from human blind spots, like H&M's coolest monkey in the jungle or Dove's whitewashing ad? So what do you think about biases that we're going to see?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is this is still an active area of research, right? So we have gone through as humanity a few years ago when what happens if you use AI without a sort of a training wheel or like a checks and balances, like for example, like algorithms being used to make a decisions about parole being racist and things like that. So I guess to an extent that if it's not used blindly, it could actually help. For example, you could imagine an algorithm that tries to go actively searching for a data set or experience that's not widely available. Maybe it's blindsided by just a few humans, and then present that to the humans. Then humans can probably incorporate that. So I don't know. I guess this is like a tool, right? I don't think there's an automatic sort of answer yet. This will increase or decrease. It's just as Jeff and Kathy mentioned, just how people use it. It can go either ways, I would say.
Yeah, because the AI is going to have access to every racist joke that's ever been told. How will it know that this is an inappropriate thing to use to emulate as something funny? And especially, there are racist jokes that are all over the internet that people think are really funny. It won't know that. It will just go look at it. Everybody thinks this joke is funny. I'm going to emulate it and do this. So
Right.
it's gonna take some time to milk that kind of thing out of it, like DK's saying. It's to put some guardrails on it or whatever you called it. It's gonna take time. It's gonna take time.
Scary
DK,
concept.
DK, do you think that it will be able to monitor itself? Will we be able to say, is there any racist bias to this ad that I'm doing, and can it itself decide or help decide?
That's a great question. I mean, in a way that people reacting to something and recording it, and then it'll just get a sense of, hey, there might be something wrong there. It can definitely do that right now. And this is how ChatGPT is sort of trained, right? So
Right.
people just giving feedbacks, and the same techniques can be applied. Then also you can mix these statistical machine learning that learns by examples and some sort of rule-based put up guardrail. And if there is, you can specify, hey, if this algorithm is trying to put out something that resembles that seems like racist or is not appropriate or is making a remark that is harmful, that's not, you know, politically correct, or, you know, then yeah, I mean, you can definitely, I can imagine setting something up like that.
I think it would be very helpful to imagine a time when the AI could be trained to detect that stuff and help us find it and help us realize unrealized kind of unintentionally racist stuff in the things that we make. You know, I mean, look at that Bing search chat thing in the New York Times this past week that had a whole bunch of scary, somewhat inappropriate kind of stuff in it. And Bing was like, oh yeah, well, we can get that out. You know, I think that will start happening. You know, they'll start going, yeah, we better not, don't use that word anymore. And start, and by the way, there'll be different brands of chat, of AI that you'll use. And some of them will be better at this than others. I think there'll be a competition for this kind of thing, which will be healthy, you know, that there'll be one that comes forward and actually does a good job of this. And people will champion it and use it more than one that doesn't. So, but right now we think of them as all the same, but they're going to start differentiating more and more.
Jeff, do you
going
ever worry
forward.
that everything's just going to be whitewashed? Like,
No, because
well, I think there's something healthy in people.
that can only
themselves.
happen if we let it happen. Again, it's a taste thing, you know. It can only happen if we let it happen, and if people that aren't, you know, that aren't of that kind of mind are making these products, you know, they have to have a bias for it not being that way. So that could be bigger than that.
Just to give like fun example in the history, there was one time when Watson learned to curse and speak in inappropriate language by, you know, copying the all the slang, the Urban Dictionary, and then they had to like quote unquote, yeah, lobotomize it. Microsoft, before OpenAI, they released something called Tay on Twitter, and it was learning from users on Twitter. It became like the worst version of humanity within 24 hours. So they actually, it started with like hello world, and then like within 24 hours, it started becoming like anti-Semitic, and, you know,
Yeah.
it was terrible.
Interesting.
So I guess we learned from that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, that's what I mean. Look at how we did learn from that. I mean, the fact that happened, we learned from it, and that's what's important. It's the taste thing again. I mean, if we learn from that stuff, then it's a positive thing. If we don't learn from it, then it dumbs us down and gives way to our worst selves, you know?
Yeah.
One thing I also wanted to mention that is that a lot of these large models, large language model like ChatGPT, or the models that learn from what's online, it's inherently biased because they're only there is a bias in what goes online, right? So I think one advertising example that I think was like a sort of like a good example, whether it's for layman or the AI experts or literally everyone. Heinz had this marketing campaign where they asked DALL-E 2 from OpenAI draw a picture of a ketchup, and of course because it learned from internet, whereas there's gazillion different images of Heinz ketchup, it's gonna spew out something that looks like Heinz. So in a way, it's like obvious, but in a way, that's the saying, look, ketchup is dominated. But again, that's probably because I don't know the market size in the world and how many different ketchup brands there are. But that might be biased because, you know, just Heinz ketchup just happens to be a lot online. So I guess we have to be cognizant, you know, we have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
That is a really interesting phenomenon to point out, because, you know, going back to the racism thing, you could imagine a country in which, you know, one of the minorities is incredibly persecuted. So everybody online persecutes this minority, and it becomes the Heinz ketchup thing, you know, so that, it becomes accepted. You know what I mean? It becomes The
Right.
AI accepts it as like what everybody's thinking, and that's dangerous. That's
Yep.
dangerous.
I think there's
Yeah.
going to be, it sounds like there's going to be a whack-a-mole situation where, you know, it's going to go in one direction and we're going to try to say, no, that's not the right direction. And it's going to continue to come up with different ways of being maybe not appropriate. And then there will be some people that actually want to promote that, right? There's going to be the misinformation, malinformation, disinformation that's going to be promoted by certain tools that will look for those things, right? So
We already have those tools. They're called Facebook and Instagram.
Twitter.
yes, that is true. So let's pull. We have lots and lots of questions here, but let me pull one up here. So one of them is just directly to you. Stephanie asks, Jeff, how does your agency plan to use AI in the creative process, and are you using it, and is it being part of your everyday process?
For sure, we're looking into using AI to do really rudimentary stuff. It's not brain surgery the way we're using it. I don't think it has any ethical problems. It doesn't have any dumbing down problems. It's doing like really low level stuff for us. We've experimented with doing higher level things with the products that are out there. And you know, we've actually made an installation at the Dali Museum in St. Petersburg, Florida, where you go in and there are like these big TV screens that are, and you use your mobile device to type in a 350 character version of a dream that you've had, and the thing will paint that dream in the style of a particular painter of the day. So we pick a style of David Hockney. It'll paint your dream in David Hockney's style, and then it will add your dream to 5 other people's dreams and make a tapestry out of them for 20 minutes that's displayed there. So that's using it for the good. It's kind of corralled in a good way. People have gone in and given like obscene dreams to it, and it goes through Dali too, and there are some guardrails on it. They're not 100%. They're not 100% effective, but they're pretty good. And you know, you want to be able to paint a scary dream or even a sexy dream, but you don't want it to be pornographic dream because it's in a public space. So these are really hard things to teach a machine to do, frankly.
Yeah.
I'm sympathetic, you know, but you know, the intent is good there. That's a use of it. You're asking, are we using it? Yeah, we are.
So one more question I want to ask, and then we'll do just a wrap up for each one of you to give some opinions. But a quick question here is somebody brought up about deep fakes. So with deep fakes, we can start taking famous people and putting words into their mouths and make them look like they're saying something that they may or may not actually say or do, or and with individualized advertising, you may not even catch it. I mean, you know, if they put it on TV, then they can catch it and they can say that wasn't me. But what do you think about deep fakes coming into the advertising world?
We've used deepfake. We did a deepfake version of Salvador Dali that's at the museum, made from interviews with the guy, and and sounds like him. It looks like him. It like recreates his size, his presence. He acts like Salvador Dali, but he talks about the Tampa Bay Rays score of the day and things, things that make it clear that it's not Dali. That stuff is, that is extremely dangerous in many ways. And, DK can talk a little bit about the kind of watermarks and so on that they're trying to make now to keep us aware that things are deep fakes. And as soon as somebody comes up with a way to watermark it, somebody comes up with a way to beat the watermark. So it is whack-a-mole for sure.
Yeah.
Sounds like blockchain is coming back in. I'm afraid we're running out of time here. So how about 1 minute for each of you, or just a comment from each of you on what you want our audience to take away from this interesting conversation.
Oh, boy. Jeff, I'm going to make you start. Although, just getting back to deep fakes for a minute, we have Fox News to do that. So, there's so much of that out there now, and people suck up everything and believe it. It's scary how much people can be fooled in our country. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to pass it back to you, Jeff.
Jeff.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to have DK go first because we've
Right.
talked way too much about advertising.
Yeah, well, I guess I think one thing I want to keep saying is that it's very hard to predict how this landscape will evolve, because every prediction I've had and the people I learned, the AI professors and scholars had, it's been broken, right? So I remember back in undergrad, AI professors saying the game of Go will not be beaten for a couple of decades. It was beaten literally like 11, like, I don't know, 12 years after
The next day.
And yeah, it has taken an exponential curve. And I also want to mention that, you know, as long as there's data, it is quite good at, we have, it's a great function fitter, right? So it's hard to make a prediction. But before going into much details, I kind of want to say like what I'm excited about, like, you know, when will the virtual reality come? You know, when will it become mainstream? But once it becomes mainstream, you can imagine AI algorithm that just, you know, creates a virtual reality world from text on the spot. As Jeff mentioned, you can maybe create like a avatar on the spot based on existing data. I think that would be really cool, and we are very close to that. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. And lastly, I want to say that I don't know what kind of creativity these tools will enable, different types of creativity. And I think it's an open question that I think I'm fascinated about, and we'll do some research on it.
Great, thanks. We're
Nice.
we're at 4:30. So a sentence from each of you guys.
My sentence is, you know, we have to be the arbiters of taste. We have to be the ones that keep it from doing things that we don't want it to do. There is no government agency that's as smart as DK is to limit this stuff. And, you know, we need people like that have an ethical compass to control this thing. Because as my friend Jim Riswald, who comes and does seminars at my place, says to the young artists and writers, you have to do better than free pornography online, because it's free.
Kathy, you have a wrap up?
Oh, this was just such a pleasure, because I had not been able to spend time with Jeff ever before. So Jeff, thank you for this honor.
Thank you.
So fun to hear from Dr. Yoon, who's clearly, you know, the next face of, you know, the group that's going to be controlling everything we know and learn. And so I was thrilled to be able to meet you. I just still am a huge believer in humanity. And I just hate the thought that we're all going to just give into the fact that artificial intelligence is just going to take the world over, because for all the reasons we talked about. So
Okay. Good way to conclude it. That was good. Humanity's gonna dominate. That's it.
Big believer in the human brain.
Good. Well, a big thank you, Jeff, Kathy, DK. It was a great conversation. And thank you, audience, for coming and your questions. You're quite connected. Thank you very much. Next month, we are going to have Vincent Stanley, Director of Philosophy at Patagonia, to discuss the innovative changes that probably the most socially conscious companies now owned by the Earth. So watch for announcement for that and other upcoming webinars at insights.bu.edu, as well as our Insights podcast that I'm sure you'll enjoy. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day. And thanks.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Dave, Jeff, and Kathy.
Alrighty.
Thank you. Nice to meet you guys.
All
Thanks
right.
so much.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.